Loki has premiered its first episode on Disney+, and this is the video where we break it all down and share our opinions.
What did you expect?
BD here. I watched the first episode of Loki like you. I actually also watched the second episode of Loki, so to some extent in this video, I'm going to kind of play dumb a little bit. And to not spoil anything from the next hour, which is actually 54 minutes with credits, about the first hour, which was actually 51 minutes with credits. Not bad though, I like the run times. Also, I really like this show. I thought it was really good. Tom Hiddleston brings the cunning, the charm, the wit, the everything about Loki that we loved from the 2012 Avengers. He picks up right where that movie left off really, really well. I love that about it. And really, Owen Wilson. Wow. Mobius said Mobius is a character that I really want to see more of. I know we want to talk about Easter eggs. I know we want to talk about the ending of the episode. And I know we want to talk about the new characters in the TVA. So we're going to do all that in this video. Great first episode. It did more to create new mythology and history and concepts in the MCU, I think, than all of WandaVision or The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like, I think those shows are going to be very character-building-centric shows, whereas this one is, it's going to have Loki at the forefront, but I think it's also going to do a lot for expanding the possibilities in the MCU sandbox. So let's jump in right there. There is a line from Miss Minutes, who, by the way, is voiced by Tara Strong, the voice of Harley Quinn, Bubbles in the Powerpuff Girls, Timmy Turner in Fairly OddParents, now Miss Minutes in the MCU because they kept that a secret. Good job. But Miss Minutes says in the kind of TVA intro video that there has been a multiversal war already where all these kind of timelines started to interfere with each other and a big explosion of timelines happened and it resulted in a multiversal war. So a multiversal war, of course, has us going, Secret Wars, right? Now, Secret Wars, if you don't know the comic, we can do a whole video on that, but the short version is that all these different realities start to kind of collide with each other, merge into one, and then these crazy fights happen with heroes versus different versions of themselves, villains. It's one of the biggest, most sprawling comic book stories that exists, and it seems like the only way they could really top Endgame, right, in terms of scope. So Loki, being at the beginning of Phase 4 with, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness on the way, seems like they're certainly teeing it up. I have a theory though, so tighten up the tinfoil hat, buckle up, because I don't know where this one is going to land on the crazy spectrum, but I'm going to throw it at you anyway. What if Secret Wars already happened and the TVA knows about it? We just don't because we're following the timeline with the Avengers as they experience it. Like, the TVA knows everything about the past and the future because there is no time. They are in the null time zone where they are forever and they are never. So they may have already seen Secret Wars play out. We just haven't seen it with the Avengers characters we've been following in the MCU. But it's just something to think about. It will be interesting to see how this show tackles time travel. That's just like a plot device that always breeds plot holes and just inconsistencies, but their way around it seems to be just having TVA agents and soldiers just leave those kind of charges behind that clear up everything that they did that made a mess, revert it back to the way it was supposed to be in the sacred timeline, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't matter whatever happens there. That paired with kind of the blanket statement of the Avengers did what they were supposed to do from Judge Renslayer, seems like kind of they're saying, there are no plot holes here. It's not possible. We covered our bases. If this wasn't the case, the Avengers didn't do what they were supposed to do, then the TVA would have gone after Gamora after she was plucked out of 2014 and started living in 2023 for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And it would be the same for Steve Rogers, who went and lived in a whole different timeline with Peggy Carter. This is all the rules set in place by the Timekeepers. They're a group of space lizards, as Loki calls them in this episode, that protect the sacred timeline. They do exist in comics. And they also create Immortus in comics. And Immortus is a version of Kang the Conqueror, a character who we expect to see in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania with Jonathan Majors in the part, and the connections are laid out in this episode. Judge Renslayer. Her real name is Ravonna Renslayer. She's a character who has a lot of ties to Kang the Conqueror, but according to Gugu Mbatha Raw, this is an origin story.
As we see Renslayer in the TVA and in Loki, this is somewhat of an origin story to what we know of in the comic.
We know Jonathan Majors is playing Kang already in the Ant-Man movie. That's a romance. That's like a world domination romance. Now, I don't know if they've told you anything, but does that sound like something that would be fun to carry out, like take over the world, travel through time, kind of with like a...
I mean, I would love that. I don't know. We shall see. We shall see what happens. I couldn't possibly divulge any information about that.
So it seems like we're just kind of at the early stages of Ravonna, and this character might actually get out of the TVA or really buy into whatever the TVA is selling if they are kind of answering to Immortus or creating Kang the Conqueror. And in one timeline, she might even fall in love with him and rule the world as she has in comics. They don't call her the Time Princess in comics for no reason. Another Easter egg I want to talk about is the fact that Owen Wilson said there is a department in the TVA called the Nightmare Department. Nightmare is a villain some expected to pop up in WandaVision. It's a character who could still be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. He's like this dark entity who rules one of the splinter realms called the Nightmare Realm, and I feel like the TVA would have a lot of problems with anybody who protects an alternate reality, an alternate dimension. They seem to want everything nice and kept and orderly. So I feel like they would have a big problem with Nightmare, but he might just be a villain so powerful that they can't really course correct him. They do have Infinity Stones, which a few years ago I would have lost my mind seeing all of the Infinity Stones in a drawer, but these things are just paperweights, so that's kind of the moment which I think is saying two things to us. One is that the TVA is super powerful, and Loki believes that, so he buys in that moment. But also I think it's like, all right, the Infinity Saga is done. The Infinity Stones are gone. They're a thing of the past. Let them go. So I guess this thing isn't worth anything anymore. One last thing I want to point out, Tom Hiddleston did wear the same exact costume he wore in 2012's The Avengers movie. It still fit him. He told me this in an interview you can find on the Comicbook.com YouTube channel. Humble brag, I got to talk to Tom Hiddleston this week, and it was awesome. That's your breakdown, reaction, review thing of the Loki premiere. If you want more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. Let us know what else you want to see in the comment section, and go ahead and rate the episode out of 10 in that same comment section. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to talk more, hit me up on Instagram at BrandonDavisBD. Head over to Comicbook.com/Marvel for more news, insights, updates, all of the above. I suggest the Phase Zero podcast. It's available on all major podcast platforms, and it covers all things MCU. I'm your host, BD. I'll see you there.
We'll be right back.